Hello, profitable PR pros. How are you guys doing today? I'm going to wait. Well, we're going to introduce our amazing guest here. Hi, Dondrea.
Hi.
Currently, nobody is on live, but it takes about a second. And then we start to see we're on a little bit of a delay. But we were just chatting, and I'm so excited to talk to you. Like I was saying, this topic is so important.
Mhm.
And, I'm like interested in it and I practice it in my own life and my business in terms of investing, paying myself first. But when we decided that we were going to bring the most value to our community and went to them and said, how can we serve you better? What can we offer to you?
Mhm.
Several people said to me, you know what, Jen, you teach us how to make the money. How do we create something that'll grow wealth and financial independence and freedom?
Yeah.
So we looked for you and like couldn't have been a better fit. So tell us
Awesome.
about who you are, everything about your business, your background, where you're located. Just fill us in on Dondrea.
Okay. So I'm Dondrea Owens. I'm a CPA and I live just north of Atlanta, Georgia. I have been an accountant for over 10 years. Graduated, worked in public accounting for 10 years, managed a team at a public accounting firm. So
You
my
were like at
accounting
a
is,
big firm, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So did that. And during that time, I also had a side hustle as a wedding invitations designer.
Oh,
And so
really?
it was super fun.
Nice.
Got a chance to be creative and grow a business. And so that really opened me up to the world of online business and small business owners and all of that. And it was through some of those connections that I found my services as an accountant were more in demand
Mm.
than my services as a wedding invitations designer. So that's
Wait,
the
so
switch.
So
hmm
I would imagine then that you are designing all of your amazing collateral for your.
I have in the past,
Okay,
but I am no longer doing that. I have a graphic designer now who I love.
she's very
Um,
good.
well, thank you.
Really good. And just to circle back on that,
hmm
she has a brand newly designed, that's is that a word? Brand new, fresh designed guide that if you leave a comment on this video, whether you're watching us live now or you are watching a replay, you will get access to her free download in your Facebook DMs. It's now called the Believable Budget Workbook,
hmm
right? This is the
That's right.
refresh. So, can you
hmm
tell us a bit more about that? What is this resource going to
Yeah.
provide to our audience here?
So the number one objective of the workbook is for you to find out what it truly costs to run your business. And not just run your business, but run your business and pay yourself. So we're trying to get you to that magic number that you need to make in sales so that you're not just pulling numbers out of thin air for what you need to make every month or setting goals that aren't really in line with where you are in business right now. So the workbook will walk you through those steps and help you get to that magic number.
Okay, we've got several please shares. We've got some comments here. So awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, anybody who leaves a comment will get in your DMs that PDF, and then you will be added also to her Dondrea. Did I say that right? Dondrea? To
Andrea.
yeah, to her email list, and she's sharing awesome resources. So I signed up, and I'm already getting all the good stuff. So definitely leave a comment here so you get access to that. But let's kind of walk through your whole premise is like making good, solid financial decisions and knowing
hmm
your numbers.
Yeah.
So, where do you start?
Okay. Well, I like to say all good financial decisions come from knowing your numbers. So you start with knowing that what the numbers are.
Yeah, with that
And the
workbook.
easy, yes, that workbook is a great place to start, especially if you're coming from a season of not really having any systems or controls around your money. So this sort of takes you out of creating a spreadsheet or, doing all of those things. You can sit down with 3 months of bank statements and this workbook
Hmm.
and comb through those statements and find your expenses.
Mm.
And I say that because a lot of times, business owners kind of fall into business ownership. So you may be coming from a freelance background or a contractor background. And so what I've seen in those cases is that you've not yet made the switch between having business transactions in your personal account or having a separate account. And so that's why I say it's just that simple. Bank statements, this workbook, and you can get yourself to a really good place.
You had a really good tip on Instagram, on an IGTV that I just watched about reviewing your expenses and looking and
Yes.
kind of which is non-essential and what you can kind of let go of. And actually, I don't know if you know, but your video like cut off right when you were like, and then you're gonna, and it,
oh no.
I was like, tell me what to do.
I'm still learning IGTV and video and all of that. It's a fun thing, and I love to watch it from other people. But it's its own animal for me. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. And the main thing with that is just having a clear view, having a place to go and look and see what those subscriptions are, and being able to judge it solely based off that. What I find is like with clients, when I pull up their P&L and we're talking about what's in those categories, sometimes it's easy to forget, when you see the same software expense every single month in total, you just forget what's in that number. And so I like to review it every quarter and show them exactly what's there. And then they can tell me, oh no, let's cancel X, Y, and Z. And then you see immediate savings from that.
Can you, for those who may not know, my husband lives in P&L spreadsheets and financial projections because this is for a living. He's an M&A advisor. He does mergers and acquisitions. But what is P&L for somebody with a smaller business or who is maybe seeing themselves currently as maybe a freelancer? So I try to get people out of the freelance, out of the gig type business into an agency structure with a retainer model so we can have consistent, predictable, recurring retainer revenue. And I also start in my program saying you have to know your numbers. It's in the very first pillar, the strategy pillar of what we teach. So if they're going to create a P&L, what is that? And what does it kind of entail?
So it's a profit and loss statement. And the easiest way is to have bookkeeping software. So something like QuickBooks is what I recommend and what I use with all of my clients. But it basically shows all of your sales for a certain period of time. Now, you can run a P&L for the month. You can run it for the week even, and of course for the year. But it's for a period of time, and it's a snapshot of the sales during that time and the expenses during that period of time. Then it gets you to your what we call your bottom line, which is your either net profit or net loss.
Yeah. And then you can see with more clarity what you're actually, so the money you're bringing into the business isn't what you're making.
It is not at all. I have this thing sometimes where I say, if you're wondering why you have sales but no cash, look at your expenses. Because that's the only thing.
What are some like sneaky expenses that you see some of your clients like maybe over and over again have that they don't necessarily, people are like loving this, by the way. And just for those who just jumped on, if you leave any comment on this video, you will be added, you will be given her Believable Budget workbook in your Facebook DMs or whatever it's called, Messenger. You're going to get that from us, and then you'll be added to her list and get all kinds of great resources. So what are those kind of sneaky, like people don't see it coming, but they add up?
Okay, so the sneakiest of expenses would be in advertising and marketing. And the ones that I see most are with like Facebook ads or Instagram ads, because those kind of add up over time and then they're charged to your account. You can sometimes forget that they're running or the amount at which they're running. So that can be a tricky expense. I always like to budget ahead of time for that. So set your budget on the front end, and then you know what your daily spend is on Facebook.
That's a good
pretty easily.
We see it. What happens with us is we're running several campaigns so that someone will say like, what's the budget? And I'll say, oh, like $5 or $15 a day sounds reasonable, but we're running 10 campaigns. I keep forgetting that we have like list building campaigns and promoting like a webinar or a class or training. So definitely we see that add up.
Mhm.
Pretty sneaky, and they just
Yes.
billing thresholds, and then you're like, damn it, Facebook, like
Right.
charge my card. But the main thing that I want to oh, Dwayna, your comment got caught off. Add it here because I can't see. You said what about, and then it doesn't say anything. um, but then you also talk about paying yourself
Mhm.
first, or like that's what I say. Oh, Dubsado to track expenses. Are you familiar with Dubsado?
Yeah, so I use Dubsado as well. I use it more so for client management, so for contracts and invoicing. It does have a report feature. However, you're responsible for adding in all of your expenses manually. And what I've seen is as your business grows, that can take a lot of time to do manually. You're better off automating that portion.
So QuickBooks pulls it in from your credit cards,
Yes,
categorizes it, and then you can have a bird's eye view of all your spending without
exactly.
really doing it. One of the
Yeah.
questions we have, and this is like the whole kind of point of the discussion from
Mhm.
Ash, is do you subscribe to the profit first mindset where you make sure your profit and your salary comes out before expenses? I just recently learned this is a thing.
Okay.
Profit first.
Okay.
What's your
So I will say my experience has been I've read the book. I agree with some of the principles, some not so much. And here's why. Um, it works for some business owners who are using their cash balance as the test for whether it's good to invest or maybe not paying themselves or things like that.
Mhm.
So it solves a lot of problems for those business owners. But if you are someone who is not a free spender, anyway, you'll probably do better without the percentages, is what I've seen with my own clients. I had one client come to me this year who said she wanted to implement Profit First and open the 5 accounts that you start with and all of those things.
What are they?
Um,
Do you know off the top of your head?
yeah, so there's income, there's profit, there's tax, there's your personal pay, and then a general account.
Okay.
And that is fine, but it's a lot to keep up with, especially when you're a new business owner.
Hmm.
So I like to use what I call the 50-30-20 method, and I can talk about that a little bit too. But what I will say with the profit first is that sometimes I've had business owners whose profit margins were much higher than the recommended margins on profit first. And so for us to implement profit first, we'd actually be saying spend more money,
Yeah.
and we didn't need to.
Yeah.
So we stuck with the method that we used. So I think it can work in certain situations.
Okay.
But when you're new, I think the easiest thing to do is to do the 50-30-20 method with your profit, which means you take your sales,
Hmm.
whatever your expenses are, and all of my clients have at least a 50% margin between sales and expenses.
That's a
So that is our first benchmark for you to reach that point.
wow.
And whether that means we streamline your expenses or look at your pricing or get you more sales, that is the very first goal.
I love that.
So from there,
Hmm.
we take your profit and then we split it. We say 50% goes to you for personal pay, 30% we set aside for taxes, and then 20% we leave in the business as like a business savings.
Okay.
And the objective of that is to grow to 3 months of expenses in your business savings account.
Okay.
So we have this. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Finish that thought, and then I'll ask.
No. Okay. So we set up the strategy on the front end so that you start paying yourself immediately. And it's not the same consistent amount every month. Just because sales can ebb and flow, especially in the beginning of business. But once we get to a point where you've got enough saved, we can start to level out that personal pay number.
So
And so,
50% of your monthly profit.
yes,
Okay, after expenses.
yes.
And then how do you allocate that 50%? Like working towards investment
Hmm.
investments. How do you
So the
allocate?
50% for you on the personal side, I would say for most of my business owners, it's their living expenses. Some of them take 10 to 20% and put it in savings. Some are paying off personal debts. So on that side, it just becomes about budgeting.
Mhm.
So how much do you actually need to live off of? And we want to make sure that you are securing that first.
Mhm.
And then it becomes, what is your goal? Is your goal to pay off debt, to save, or to then invest?
Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's the ultimate goal is getting to a place where you have investment vehicles, you're
Mhm.
putting money away for retirement, or you're having
Right.
some kind of, stocks mutual funds or other things that are paying you
Hmm.
somewhat of passive income, or at least securing your financial future.
Right. And and the thing with owning your own business is that it all starts in the business first. So whatever trickles down from the business is what becomes yours. So you've definitely got to start there. You've got to streamline that as much as you can. You know, make the most sales that you can make with what you're doing before you start to hire. I
Mhm.
mean, because there's going to be a lot of things that happen in that business to get you to the profit number that you need to be able to pay yourself well enough for you to invest. So that's why the business piece is so important when you own your own business.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then, can you talk a little bit about how to protect your financial assets?
Okay, so I say one of the ways is to form a legal business entity,
Okay.
because not only does that protect your personal assets, in the event of any type of litigation or judgments against you, it also separates you financially,
Hmm.
because the business itself has its own account, has its own credit, all of those things. So it's really separating you apart from the business, which is very necessary. I advise a lot of business owners, especially those who are married or who have significant personal financial assets,
Hmm.
to separate themselves entirely from the business, even if that means they're at a point where they make themselves an employee of the business and they're not just an owner.
Okay.
Hmm.
So do you have an opinion on like an S corp versus an LLC for like tax purposes? I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, like we're not your tax advisor. This is just something to
right.
ponder, but um, what are your thoughts on that? Because I am an LLC. Generation PR is an LLC. So when
Hmm.
we started, before I would say we had significant clients and stuff coming through the business, it's a
Hmm.
little bit expensive to set up a corporate entity. So we started with a DBA, which is
Hmm.
simply that Jen Burson is doing business as Generation
Yes.
PR for the purpose of cashing checks. That
Hmm.
was inexpensive, and
Yes.
it's a way to like look professional to your clients, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs here that are just getting started. So just
Hmm.
to give a sense of my journey. And then after like about a year or so, we definitely wanted to protect our personal assets and ourselves personally from any kind
Right.
of litigation or problems that would arise through the business. And the way to do
Hmm.
that is the protection of a corporation or some kind of business entity, like you're saying. So we set up as an LLC, but then our accountant has us filing taxes as an S corp for some reason,
Yes,
because of
that's correct.
the way to maximize what we can put away in our retirement accounts,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
optimizing, what we can save
Right.
tax. I think.
Yes.
So, what are your
So
opinions on
that is definitely a piece of it. The other piece is that you save on self-employment taxes by making yourself an employee,
that? Okay,
because it makes half of the self-employment taxes deductible when you're taxed as an S corp.
I am
When
an employee and I pay payroll tax on myself.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
that is correct.
It's annoying,
So
but we do.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
that's one of the reasons why. And that it will look different for everyone when it's time to make that election as an S corp,
Okay.
because the S corp isn't a true entity, it is just a tax designation.
Yes, that's correct.
So you can elect that at any time. But there is a number. Your tax accountant is the best person to tell you when you've reached that point.
It's like a threshold of like
Yes,
paying a certain amount where like that tax designation has
makes a difference.
different.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's different for everyone because, we've all got different financial situations. Some people might own homes, some might have kids. And so you just never know when you're going to hit
Okay.
that tax. Yeah,
Got it.
just
Okay.
never know.
Also confusing.
It is very
That's why we need
confusing.
the pros like you who like help us through that process. So,
Hmm.
and if you just jumped on, leave a comment here and you'll get access to her Believable Budget Workbook, the new name of this amazing
Hmm. Thank
resource.
you.
Yeah. So can you talk about what makes a good investment? So now we're paying ourselves first, 50%
Hmm.
profits, making sure we're covering living expenses. Um,
Hmm.
what makes a good investment? Now we have a little
Yeah.
money to try to build some wealth.
Right. So all good investments have a return.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just an expense.
Huh.
And you've got to kind of weigh what the return on that investment is going to be.
Okay.
So, say for instance, I were to invest in a high level mastermind. You've got to first ask yourself, what is it that you expect to gain from that?
Okay.
And what are the odds of you either getting more sales, getting more time back, learning some new skill that will make you more money? You've got to determine what that is on the front end.
So the
Um,
ROI for that
the
investment.
ROI, absolutely. And then gauge your level of commitment. Do you have time? Because there's nothing worse than making an investment in something like that and not having the time to get the full benefit of it. It is a waste of time and money at that point.
Or we think we're going to learn by osmosis. Like I bought this and it's
Yes,
download into my brain and I don't have
yes.
to actually do the work, you know, but yeah.
Right. And
We tend to say too, because, you know, I have programs in my business that I offer to help people make more money, you know, hone their
mhm,
craft and then build a profitable business. And, you know, I've given the program away to people for free for
mhm,
certain reasons,
mhm,
you know, to help somebody that I think is really in desperate need and really could use the support and they need
mhm.
it. They just need.
Yeah,
So we have found when people, it's like the transformation is in the transaction. When
yeah.
somebody pays, they pay attention, they invest their time where they invest their
Mhm.
money. So,
Right.
but it's a fine balance between, let's say, a $25,000 mastermind where you
Right.
are maybe not going to amplify your business results by that $25,000, at least maybe not right
Mhm.
away. So could that money
Right.
be better allocated somewhere else? So
Exactly.
that's a
Mhm.
tip. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've also got to consider the time that you are taking away to do whatever, if it's an investment like that, the time that you take away from your business,
Mm,
you're taking time away from actually earning sales.
yeah.
And so you've got to be okay with that trade off as well. And like you said, too, it's always good to look at your current cash position before you make any investment, and to look at it and project out and say, what will this $5,000 investment mean for my cash going forward? What will it change for me?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes just the loss of that security. I've had clients who look at their savings and say, I have it, but if I spend it, I'm going to start to feel that scarcity.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
anxiety about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
And that makes them sell differently. It makes them show up online differently. And so you
Like
don't want to have that.
desperate energy.
Yes.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And when should you begin paying yourself? We kind of touched on this a little bit, but
Hmm.
our businesses are not us. The money we bring into the business is not our income. So we talked
Yeah.
about that, but when should you begin kind of paying yourself?
I say from the very start.
Okay.
And it's not advice that I always took myself. And I'll tell you that story. When I was designing wedding invitations, of course, I was still working full time
Mhm.
as an accountant. And so there was no real need. It was more of a hobby turned business. And so I made the excuse of, okay, well, whatever I earn, I will reinvest it in the business.
Mhm.
But the moment I changed that mindset and said, well, I do want this to start paying me something, and it doesn't have to be a full salary to start. I said, okay, this next job I do, it'll just pay me $100. Small amount, right? It changed the way I showed up
Huh.
in the business.
How so?
Just that small amount. I will say for the most part, it made me diligent about the work that I did, made sure I hit deadlines.
Mm.
I wanted to make sure that I sent contracts out on time, invoice out on time, delivered the work on time. I just got really clear on my process. And after that was a reward at the end, is
Mhm.
the way that I viewed it.
Mhm.
Ever since then, I have paid myself in my business from that day forward because I felt that shift in the way that I was showing up because I was getting paid for something. It's kind of like you said, paying for a course, you show up differently. Paying yourself from your business, you show up differently as well.
Yeah.
I would never expect to walk into the accounting firm and work. We would do sometimes 80 hours a week during busy season. I would never expect to go in and do those 80 hours and not get paid.
Right.
I just wouldn't do it.
Okay, no way.
So I didn't want to set that precedent in my business either.
Yeah. And it just inspired you to be completely buttoned up from the
Hmm.
because you're earning this income
Right.
reward at the end of the project.
Hmm.
So,
And another thing it changed for me is really knowing my numbers as well, because in order to be able to pay myself, because I myself was using the 50/30/20 method,
mhm.
it meant that I had to keep an eye on what the expenses were. I knew how much I was charging for the package, but there were times when, when you're in the stationery store and you're a paper person like I was, and still am, when you go in, you see all types of little cute things and
Shiny
you just
object.
throw them. Yes. And so it took away that aspect because I knew I was eating away at my profit when I did that.
Ah,
So,
okay. And that's
yeah.
like across the board for any
Hmm.
like once you have a clear financial picture of what you're actually making and when you pay
Yes.
yourself what you're actually taking home, then the
Hmm.
impulse buys become more of a, it's something you consider more. It's something you kind of give more
Yes,
like weight to at the
absolutely.
paper source. I know I get drawn.
I know. One of
Oh,
my
these things
favorites.
are cute. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't need those, silver straws and this like
Yeah.
stationery book. But, and I started to realize too that things I was like bringing into the home became instead of something I really loved, it was just like more clutter and
Hmm.
that drained my energy. And I went
Yeah.
through and completely purged my office and like really only kept the essentials that sparked
Hmm.
creativity and inspired me and brought me joy. And I just felt like way more productive and
Right.
organized when I was in my space. And it was like fewer things was more, energizing to me. So now
Right.
I consider that before I spend. And it's like, I don't really need that.
Hmm.
More stuff.
Yeah.
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 Oh, that's a great, yeah, that's a great tip. And the last thing I know we already kind of touched on it, making yourself an employee.
Hmm.
Um, and we talked about that you may want to do that, but when should you make yourself an employee?
I'd say it's definitely a conversation you have with your tax
Okay.
person. Yeah, for sure. Because they're going to be looking at your tax return and see all of your situations there that could affect what your self employment tax is going to be
Okay.
or your ultimate tax at the end. So they'll best be able to advise you when you see that you're going to hit this particular number in sales or in profit. This is when you should, send me an email so that we can convert you to an S corp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Do you do
And that's kind of,
that for your clients?
I do.
Okay.
So I work with another tax CPA. He loves taxes. I love financials. So it's a good team
Perfect
effort.
marriage. Yeah.
Yes. And so it really helps because, our clients have two eyes on their books
Mm-hmm.
at all times. He's a lot less conservative than I am in terms of the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I want the numbers I've got, percentages that I'm looking at for profit margins. I know what all these numbers should be.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking to maximize tax deductions and how he can do that for you.
My guy.
So,
That's who I want.
yeah,
I want that guy. Get crafty.
right.
Figure out
You
those
have to
little.
have that.
Yeah,
You
totally.
absolutely have to have
You
that.
have to know. I mean, we have these businesses, and there are a lot of ways to optimize, your tax write offs and things.
Absolutely.
And you want to work with somebody like you and your partner who understand those nuances of
Yeah.
running a business and how you can optimize those deductions. And they will advise you, by the way, you can write off your car lease because, that
Hmm.
as part of your business or your home office percentage if you're working from home.
Right.
Oh God, this gets tricky because then to like offset that we like would pay ourselves a percentage of rent for our home because I'm working from home. And then to like offset the income, we were like
Hmm.
writing off, oh my God, it got so complicated, but like writing off a
Yeah.
percentage of like the home value
Hmm.
and that
Yeah.
it just keeps catching up with you because if we go
Yeah.
to sell the house, it's like then there's like this.
Then it comes into play. Absolutely. And you have to keep all of those records.
Yeah.
So that's why having a CPA is so important. because we're required to keep all of that documentation for you.
Yeah.
And that's, that's another big thing. I've been a fan of TurboTax for a very long time. I think it's great for simple tax returns, but business ownership definitely requires more of a professional eye.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, speaking of professional eye, what is your process? So if somebody wants to work with you
Mhm.
and work with you one on one, I know you're offering these incredible one on one services. Can you tell us about what that entails, what your process is, and who is the right fit for working with you one on one?
Okay. Well, I'll start with the who.
Okay.
So we work with a lot of women entrepreneurs. They are service-based consultants, copywriters, coaches,
PR.
anything. Yes, anything service-based is our jam for sure. Um, the way we work together, we have a quarterly package where we do quarterly bookkeeping, and it's great for solopreneurs. So it's that person who's switching from the freelance contract environment into true business ownership. And they may not need to see their reports every single month because business hasn't quite picked up. So we do quarterly bookkeeping and semi-annual reviews. And during that time, we're helping them set strategy for sales goals and tax strategy.
Okay.
And then beyond that, we do monthly. And so there are two monthly packages. With the very first one, it's monthly reporting, it's monthly check-in calls. We're doing budgeting, we're looking at budget to actual, and we're giving you a snapshot. My people are visual.
Okay.
So looking at a boring report, or especially not an Excel spreadsheet, it's just not their thing.
Kind of like scream their brain and be like, I do it. That's me, by the way. I'm
So,
like, spreadsheets. My husband
right,
has like a huge spreadsheet open for hours, and I'm like, how do you? It's just
yeah,
there's two camps. I'm in the
right.
non spreadsheet camp.
Oddly enough, I enjoy them both, but my husband's highly visual. So when I'm talking, I've got the whiteboard out for
Uh,
him most times.
yeah.
So I know that people, learn that way. And so we do financial snapshots as well to help them get a visual on what revenue is doing, what's your profit margin doing, and where should your money be going.
Okay. Got it.
And then at the highest tier, it's where I function more as a CFO. So my hands are in everything, even down to your personal. So if that means that we're producing documentation so that you can buy a house,
Hmm.
that's what we're doing.
Wow.
So we've got your reports, we're looking at what that means for your personal budget, how we'll need to change your payroll, to adjust all of those things. And then even beyond that, the tax strategy, it's just more hands-on and more, frequency of touch from me.
Got it. Wow. That's
Yeah.
like incredibly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Have somebody like you in in their back pocket to optimize
Right.
their profits and have a full financial snapshot. We have a
Yeah.
question from one of the members of our programs who's asking, well, she said, I was just talking to my husband that we need to find an accountant that will help with all of these types of nuances. Anyone have a recommendation? Okay, well, hi. And she
Yeah.
asked, do you have to have the accountant in the state of your business?
You do not. So my clients are all over the US.
Do you have
They're
nuanced understanding of different like state laws?
I do. Now, accounting is the same across the board, but where it gets different is with sales taxes,
Yeah.
state income taxes, and then, of course, federal is all over.
Right.
So the state taxes can be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
I say for that, your person who is advising you regularly about financials doesn't have to be in your state. But if your state has a bunch of nuances, I always say find a tax CPA in your state or who understands your state's laws.
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
California is very tricky and they want to take
Yeah.
all our money.
So is New York.
And
Hmm.
New York, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you're in Atlanta, you're in Georgia.
Hmm.
And what's Georgia?
No, Georgia's pretty straightforward. It starts off with the federal tax return if that kind of simplifies everything for you.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any
Yeah.
final recommendations that maybe something you would want to make sure everybody knew, but we didn't touch on?
No, I think we covered a lot. I will just say numbers aren't something that you should be afraid of at all. It's really just a matter of you knowing. And once you know, it builds so much confidence just to know. So I would say definitely start with the workbook. It's going to open your eyes to so much if you've not been looking at your numbers before. And then just take it from there.
Yeah, this is an awesome resource. It's totally free. Just leave a comment on
Mhm.
this video and we'll deliver that to you in Facebook Messenger, and do the work. It's so simple and it's extremely eye-opening just to understand that, what you're bringing into your business is not your income and it's not
Mhm.
your profit, right?
Yeah.
Revenue is not profit. So you have to know those things to be a profitable PR pro, which is why we are all here. That is my
Right.
goal, is to serve you in that way, to give you the skills and the tools to grow a profitable agency. And having a PR agency can bring you incredible financial freedom. And then knowing what to do with your revenue, your profit, I should say, um,
Yeah.
that's where you come in. And
Mhm.
I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with our audience so that we can all be, what do we say? We can decode the dollars and be
Yeah.
financially savvy women.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Again, leave a comment and you'll get that instant download in your DM. It's a great tool and very eye opening. So, all right, guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks for being here.
Bye.